สวัสดีค่ะ
Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again. My name's Peter, this is Thailand Bound, and if you haven't been here before, I talk about all things Thailand. Right, it's a Saturday, that can only mean one thing, it's story time once again. I've got 3 viewers' stories that have been sent in to me, true viewers' stories, experiences in the land of smiles, and I'll be reading them out for you today. Right, okay, before we get into the first story, I've got some good news for you. If you're a regular viewer of this channel and you watch the stories every week, you should remember the second story last week. It got a lot of comments, and most of them pretty negative, actually. It was a story about a guy from the north part of England, and he's a taxi driver, basically, and he'd never been to Thailand, a little bit naive on how things work there, especially the bar scene. And in his own words, he actually said that. So what happened is he went to Pattaya. He went with a group of friends. They were bar hopping, but he bumped into a fairly youngish girl in a bar off soicowboy. His friends moved to the next bar. He was besotted by this girl and decided to stay, and all sorts of things happened. And basically, when people heard this story, everybody was like, God, this guy's, he's going to be taken to the cleaners. And, there was all these, he was explaining how he'd fallen in love with this girl, and they'd done this little pinky promise not to go with other people, and he was sending a 15 to 20,000 baht a month. So, right, the good news, this guy has actually contacted me. He listened to the story, but there's been the story's kind of moved on from when he sent that story in, because when I get stories, a lot of the time they're backed up for several weeks, so there is a little bit of a follow-on. It's not a story, he just sent me an email to let me know how things are going. So I thought what I'd do, with his permission, I'd read this out, and if you remember the story from last Saturday, then hopefully you'll relate to this. Okay, so it starts off. Good morning, Peter. Thanks for reading my story out on the channel yesterday. It was extremely surreal to hear, especially since I'm currently staying here in Thailand. Thanks also for your candid and honest reaction to my story. Anyway, I thought I'd update you on how my current situation has gone. I've now returned to Pattaya, and as you can guess, things haven't quite worked out with Dang. I won't go into too much detail at the moment, but be assured I've been completely stitched up by a Pattaya bar girl, 30 years my junior. The relationship is obviously over. I've been humiliated and conned by a 20-something Thai bar girl. Am I angry? A little. Am I embarrassed? Yes, hugely. It's my fault though, and like the song goes, there's no fool like an old fool. I'm currently having some fun now, enjoying my newfound freedom in Thailand. Between you and I, my head is all over the place. I've been hugely naive, and like the YouTube comments have said, I've been scammed. Yes, I've read them. I'd appreciate it if you could let your viewers know that no real harm has been done. I've lost a little money, but nothing that will hold me back. I've recently met a legitimate massage lady. She's more mature, and I will take things slowly. On my return to the UK, I'll give you a full update. You're welcome to read this email out on your YouTube channel. So that's pretty good, because the guy's actually woke up and smelt the coffee. But actually, to be fair to him, it's not really his fault, because, I tell these stories every week, and you guys, most of the guys who listen to these stories, you're very experienced with Thailand, the bar girl scene and everything, and you know how it works. But you think about it, the first time you came here, we all made mistakes. I'm sure I did. I can't remember, but I'm sure I did. And, he came on his first time. He fell in love with this girl, pretty girl, and he thought it was going to go somewhere, and he's now realised that it hasn't. But he's educated now. He knows. I don't think that will happen to him again. So it's a good lesson for any newbies, rookies who haven't been out here before. Right, let's get on with our regular Saturday schedule of stories. Hi Peter, I wanted to share a story with you about the time my son had while visiting Bangkok with me for a month in July. I had searched and searched for information about what it would be like for a 16-year-old boy visiting Thailand and couldn't find anything anywhere. There wasn't any blogs or videos, nothing. I was worried that he might hate it here. He was so set in his ways of just sitting around the house playing online video games and didn't want to do anything else, including taking a trip to Thailand. In fact, his gaming habit had taken over his livelihood. He never went outside, had no real friends or girlfriends, and was content with his same old routine. As a father, I was truly worried about him. He was a good student but had no life outside of sitting around gaming all day. It's all he ever wanted to do. The story I want to share with you is much more than what it's like for a teenage boy to visit Thailand. It's about how it affected him in a way that changed his life forever. It's about how his experience here had such a positive impact on him. I wanted to share his story so that maybe other fathers like myself will have information that no shrink or doctor in America would ever be able to offer. Before I get into the trip itself, you should know a little bit about his and my background. We live in a very nice part of California near the beach. My son was bullied in school because he was not athletic. It got so bad to the point I had to pull him out and place him in another school which didn't require him to attend in person to classes. The problem with that was now he had no chance of making any new friends. He was extremely depressed and stayed inside the house all day just gaming and playing with his phone. Something had to change. His psychiatrist weren't having any success with him. He told them what they wanted to hear, so they couldn't see what was the underlying problem except for maybe some previous mummy issues. I forgot to mention that I took him 4 years ago when he was 12 years old because his mother couldn't handle him anymore. He was very troubled. He was very difficult to get along with due to his unhappiness. Now allow me to get back to our story about Thailand. I first visited Thailand 20 years ago and it changed my entire outlook of the world as I knew it. It was the best experience of my life. I stayed in Thailand for about 6 weeks, so I knew a little bit about what my son would be getting into. But my concern was, is he too young to enjoy it like I did? My thoughts were probably so. They don't have a lot of amusement parks here. It's hot and humid and you walk a lot, which he hated to do. It's full of bars and adult entertainment, which he is too young for, nor would I want him to start drinking and going to bars anyway. We could go to many of the nice beaches, but we already lived near a very nice beach at home and he never wanted to go. From my past experience, I knew that there was one thing that Thailand had to offer that he would probably deeply appreciate. Having finally come to my senses to realise what this one little thing was, I decided that we'd take a trip to Thailand. I knew exactly what I had in store for him and planned on giving him the same experience that I had enjoyed so long before. Now that I had a plan, I immediately bought the airline tickets and knew that our trip would go well. I stayed up late at night talking to him about how much fun he would have and told him everything that I knew about it from my past experiences. I had told him about the beautiful women here, but he didn't seem to connect with what I was telling him. I think that he just didn't believe me or thought that it was too good to be true. I think he was just thinking that he had to tag along with me and wouldn't be able to spend all his time gaming and whatever it is he does all day in his room. So the adventure begins. We were dead tired when we first arrived, but I had already reserved a monthly rental apartment in the heart of Bangkok. With the guidance of a friend I met there 3 months prior during a very brief trip. We were able to check in early morning because of this arrangement and it made for a great start to our arrival. We checked into our 2-bedroom condo in the heart of downtown Bangkok. We were impressed with our accommodations and the incredible view of the entire city. Having such a nice place to stay whilst you visit here can make all the difference to anybody that doesn't already know that. Do not go too cheap. There are a lot of nice places you can stay without breaking the bank. Our vacation wouldn't have been the same if we were slumming it in a cheap hotel off the beaten path. So that's very important to remember for anybody wanting to really enjoy their stay here in Bangkok. We noticed that one of the 2 rooms had a private bath and corner windows with a panoramic view of the skyline. He asked whose room was whose, and I first thought, obviously, that one is mine, but quickly decided to let him have it. Why not? The other room looked great too, and I was trying to show him a good time. I really wanted him to experience my memories of Thailand from the last time. I figured it would help his outlook on the whole Thai experience. The first few days we were just lagged and didn't really know what to do or where to go. He was open to trying Thai food and the street vendors, but he initially wasn't impressed with that. He gave it a good shot, but soon I was taking him to the usual Western fast food places, pizza places or anything he was familiar with. You have to be fair about these things, and I didn't want to spoil his trip right off the bat with food he wasn't used to. It wasn't a problem for me except paying the Western prices. We had to walk down a long street to get to the main road, so going out to eat all the time became somewhat of a chore. We could have just gotten something very tasty from a street vendor right outside the condo, but it was worth it for him to take the long walk for our meals. I was pleased that at least he wasn't complaining about long walks anymore. Thailand is already having a positive impact on him. Now this is where the story about how Thailand changed my son's life begins. It was only after 4 days that we went out for dinner, and somehow along the way back he caught the eye of a beautiful girl just standing on the side of the road looking down at her phone. He was behind me, so I didn't see what happened, but when I looked back for him, he was engaged in a conversation with that pretty young Thai girl. I've never seen him talking to a girl before. I was thinking, this is really cool. I can't say that I really knew what type of conversation they were engaged in, but she genuinely looked interested in him. I stood and waited there where I was a little bit ahead of him and tried not to stare at them. I just flipped out my phone and pretended to have something better to do myself. They talked for a little while. I was dying to know what they were talking about. How did he catch her eye, or was it he who caught hers? How did the initial conversation start? Then, when I thought things couldn't get any better, she grabbed his arm and started walking with him. They came up to me with her holding onto his arm. My son told me her name and that she wanted to hang out with him. When I asked him where they were going, he told me that they were going back to the condo. I'm no fool to Thailand, but never saw this coming. Of course, I told him that was okay, as long as he knew how to get back to our room. And he told me that he knew where he was and not to worry. Off they went, just like that. I was still standing there watching them walk off together in such amazement. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. This was not the boy I knew. This was not the kid who never talked to girls, had no friends except his gaming pals, and had never expressed any interest in girls. It wasn't until about 3 hours later that I decided to go back to our condo and check in with him. I wasn't sure what to expect when I returned, but it wasn't finding her shoes by the door. The second thing I noticed was that they weren't hanging out in the living room. His door was closed. My little boy was probably having the best night of his life, so I went to bed. It was late and I was still getting over jet lag. I figured in the morning we'd wake up and get some food. That didn't happen. Her shoes were still by the door and his door was still closed. I'm thinking, heck, what is going on here? How could this kid be so lucky? I saw her with my own eyes. She was incredibly attractive and didn't look too much older than my son. I think that he might have really picked up on some girl, or maybe it was the other way round. Probably the other way round, but who cares? She's still there and doesn't want to leave him, and that's exactly what happened. She didn't want to leave. Guess they really hit it off. So I'm thinking to myself, well, this could become uncomfortable for me to be staying in the room next door to my son, who now has a girlfriend who wants to stay with him. And rightfully so, it would be awkward for any parent, I would imagine. But I wasn't going to spoil his fun. In fact, I was very proud of him, and this is why I brought him here, in case you didn't pick up on that earlier. He finally found something new in his life besides gaming and doing nothing. I had to think fast. Actually, it didn't take me long to figure out what I had to do. I got him his own studio apartment a few floors down. Thailand isn't too expensive when it comes to condos or rooms, so I figured, what the heck? Why not? It was a very nice studio apartment. He was thrilled about that. I gave him the key, he grabbed his things, and they walked off to their own little retreat. I felt very happy for him and could see it in his face and how happy he was. I wasn't in a financial position to afford it, at least it wasn't in my budget, but I did it anyway. I guess I was determined to try and make it the best damn time he'd ever have here. You must remember, I've been trying to explain to him how great Thailand was for the previous 2 months, and he was having a difficult time seeing it. Now that he was finally seeing the benefits of Bangkok, I was eager to help him find a way to stay with his new girlfriend. I've never claimed to be a moral leader of any kind and consider myself a caring and good father, so I have no guilt or shame in my role with my regards to my involvement with my son's experience here. This is a part that gets truly difficult. She lived with him the entire month. They did everything together, shop, eat, go to museums, take transit, almost like an old married couple. I believe that they had really connected and enjoyed each other's company the entire time. I've never spent that much time with my ex-wife. Unfortunately, good things don't always last forever. He did have a departure ticket and there was no escaping in that. I was saddened to see them have to say goodbye to each other and watch her get out of our taxi and walk off into the darkness. We didn't talk much on the way to the airport, but he seemed to be okay. And I was relieved about that. Let me conclude the story about the life-changing experience of my son by explaining exactly how it had such a positive impact on his life. After 4 years of living with me and never speaking to his mum, he flew back to live with her while I stayed behind to plan on a bit of an early retirement here. They had a shaky start, but now they're getting along great. He does everything she asks. He does whatever chores she asks without putting up a fight. He goes to bed when she tells him. He is attending a normal full-time school and doing quite well. He's getting along with the other kids. He's getting along with his younger sister. There is no doubt in my mind that the kid that came to Thailand is not the same kid anymore. It's like two different people. We communicate all the time with Skype and email, and I can't believe how much more mature he is than before we left. He has truly found himself and he likes what he sees. He discovered a world he didn't believe existed and can now think positively about his future. He understands that there is a place in this world that awaits him. He is driven by that fact and he reminds me of it all the time. From what I understand, he keeps in touch with his Thai girlfriend and they plan on seeing each other next summer. There's no doubt in my mind that he will get through the school year with flying colours and be thinking nothing else other than returning back to Bangkok and doing it all over again. He feels exactly the same way I did 20 years ago. And after 20 years, I finally made my way back and couldn't be happier myself. I was very happy to share the Thai experience with my boy, and it could not have worked out any better. To be fair to your viewers, Peter, should you want to share my story with them, they probably shouldn't expect you to have their kids to be so lucky as mine was. However, this is Bangkok and it's full of fun. So a little bit of a different story. That's quite a nice story, and it was quite interesting to see how his son had kind of developed. He actually grew into a man, didn't he? That Thailand did that. I think I'm a little bit paranoid. What I would have been worried about when the guy let his son go off to the condo, fair enough. I would have been thinking, well, is she a freelancer? Is she going to clear out the apartment while he's asleep? Is she going to be asking him for money? Is he going to get ripped off? But hopefully none of that happened, and it sounds like it all worked out for the best. So thank you for sharing that story if you're watching, and interesting. If you've got any similar stories, guys, I'm always interested to get stories that are slightly different, and I will read them out. And of course, as I always say, I will make them anonymous. Right, let's jump into story number 2. Back in 2016, I decided to go to Bangkok, where I know a few girls in different bars that I had been to previously. But this time, instead of 2 weeks there, I decided to jaunt over to Siem Reap in Cambodia. I booked a local return flight with Bangkok Airways for less than $180 US. I really wanted to see the Angkor Wat temple ruins and the dancers. I booked my hotel for 6 days and off I went. Now I did a bit of due diligence and I looked for other attractions. During this time I found James Angkor Tours, so I booked with him. Now James is a really nice guy and runs an English language school in his home village just outside of Siem Reap and raises money to educate the children by working as a tuk-tuk driver and guide. They range from about 7 years old up to early teens. After they finish their village work, they come to his school for a few hours several days per week. He has had several children go to university and become successful in their fields. One day, I accompanied him to the school where I got to teach the kids about Australia. A brilliant few hours teaching the kids about Australia and answering questions. At James's suggestion, I brought some pens, pencils, crayons and paper for gifts for the kids. I also grabbed a few bags of lollies to share around. The kids loved the lollies, but the new stationery really went down a treat. James wanted to take me to a retired monk who did therapeutic massage. I had to buy the monk a care pack from one of the shops for him on the way. It contained a couple of beers, cigarettes, rice, soap, incense, stock powder, cans of dehydrated milk, candles, dried fish, and a t-shirt. As soon as the old fella ran his hands over me, he identified my broken bones, torn muscles, and other sundry injuries from a previous motorcycle accident back in Australia. The next hour was probably the most painful massage I've ever experienced in my entire life. All the time James translating what the old fella was saying and how the massage with essential oils, stretching, kneading and twisting was helping me release my inner pain. I told James that this was the worst pain I'd ever experienced. James translated this to the monk, who laughed it off and told me that the inner fire, apparently injuries, would have response. I couldn't help but not believe him due to his laughing during the session. It took 2 days to actually feel the injuries he had massaged to feel better. The next day, I got a ticket to see the dancers at the Kuala 2 restaurant. They had a huge all-you-can-eat buffet for $12 US. The local beers being either Unca Red or Green. The 750 milliliter bottle was just $1 US. The dancers were magnificent. The way that the girls can bend their fingers back and dance with so much grace and poise. The dancers telling the century-old story of the Khmer people and gods. After the performance, the girls are swamped with people trying to get photos with them. The next morning at 5 AM, James picks me up to see Angkor Wat at dawn. A magnificent sight at that time with the rising sun coming up behind the main structure. The cost was $20 US for a 3-day pass, and they put your photo on the pass. This is to make sure that no one else uses your pass. It really can take 3 days to explore Angkor Wat. But after 5 hours, I had heaps of photos and called James to come and pick me up. We went to the Red Piano restaurant and pub in Pub Street. Really good food and reasonably priced drinks. For those who don't already know, Pub Street is the Bangla Road of Thailand in Siem Reap. Heaps of bars, restaurants, bars, carts and a little haunts to chill out in. I should have mentioned that most of the ATMs in Siem Reap cash out in US dollars. As a side note, when buying anything in Siem Reap or surrounds, they always ask for US dollars, but they give you the change in the local currencies. Not worth that much and hard to get rid of when you leave. On the second to last day, I hired a motorcycle early one morning to ride through the countryside, see the local farmers work in the field, on the river and through villages just doing their day-to-day things. I was thinking of going up to the Laos border, but about 3 hours into my ride, the weather changed and it started to rain really hard. I was getting drenched, and then this farmer saw me from his hut. I was driving at about 20 kilometers an hour because of the stinging rain. Anyway, the farmer beckoned me inside his little hut out of the driving rain. Inside the hut was his wife, girl child about 5 years old, and the wife's mother. No one spoke English and I spoke no Khmer. His wife and her mother got my wet clothes off me, giggling and pointing at my semi-naked frame. Now I am 185 centimeters tall, 95 kg at the time. For the non-men metric, that is 6 feet 1 inch and 220 pounds. They gave me a blanket. We all sat in the meal/sleeping/lounge area, and I was given some hot local tea, which really hit the spot. Whilst my clothes dried out in front of the fire, we tried to communicate, pointing and talking about what we called things and listening to the Khmer music channel on his old TV. They tried to offer me food, but I indicated that I wasn't hungry, always wary of food in a foreign country. The rain stopped about 90 minutes later and I got my dry clothes back on, and I tried to give them some money for the hospitality, but they wouldn't take it. I drove on to the next town about 20 minutes up the road. I saw that they had those gift packets that I had previously bought for the monks, so I brought one, a 6-pack of beer, a pack of cigarettes, a pack of lollies for the daughter. It was getting late in the day. I rode back to the farmhouse where I called out and the family came out. I gave them away and handed them the gift basket. Grandma took the basket, grabbed the cigarettes and packed her pipe immediately. I think I conveyed my appreciation that I was able to get out of the rain and potential in the downpour. They were such lovely people and just wanted to help, despite the sheer poverty they lived in. On the last night, James and I went to a local Khmer restaurant. Not one Westerner was there. We had another great meal there, but I was offered dried grasshoppers from a basket. Now at this time, everyone in the restaurant was watching me and the grasshoppers. I grabbed a large one, showed it around the table and ate it, crunchy on the outside and soft and squishy in the middle. I managed to keep it down where some of the locals clapped that I did it. I nearly downed a full bottle of Anchor to get the taste out of my mouth. Now, whilst we were eating, the waitress, May, a 35-year-old-ish woman, was serving a pretty little thing with very slim, long black hair, great figure on her with really nice legs. She spoke English as well as I speak Khmer, which is to say none at all. She kept looking at me, smiling, fussing after me and speaking to James the whole time and throwing me glances. Finally, James told me that May was asking if I was single or I had a girlfriend. She asked if she could come home with me. She was a single mum with 3 young children at home. Her husband was killed in a car accident about 3 years before, and James knew her well and said that she has not had relations with a man since her husband was killed. She and her 3 children live with her parents. I told him I wasn't looking to hire a girl because I was off to Bangkok in the morning. He told me that she didn't want any money and she found me handsome and that she would love to spend the night with me. May came home with me. The bedroom aerobics were excellent. She woke me up a few hours later for a second session and again just before dawn for round 3. May was very enthusiastic and I enjoyed my night with her. James came around the next morning to take me to the airport to go back to Bangkok. I gave May a hug and a kiss and I then tried to give her $50 so that she could buy herself something nice. She gave me this look. Apparently I had insulted her by offering her the cash. I tried to tell her through James that this was for her kids and to buy them something nice from me. She softened visibly, giving me another big hug and kiss, and we said goodbye. I gave her a little local currency to get a local tuk-tuk and returned to Bangkok to visit the other girls. It's been a few years and I speak to James a few times a year. He always says that when he goes to the restaurant, May asks after me and if I'm coming back again. I loved my trip to Cambodia and often think of May and what a great night we had. Too bad I didn't meet her the first night. Whilst James showed me around town, the markets and the villages, it was quite noticeable about so many middle-aged and older people missing limbs. Due to the Vietnam War and the Khmer Rouge, there were still minefields in the outer areas. Farmers tried to get more land to farm and accidentally encroach on the landmines and they go off, often killing people and mutilating others, killing their livestock, and they still have to make a living. On the whole, most of these people want to earn money and not receive charity, so they sell all manner of things in and around town. James told me not to stop bartering for the item I wanted because of compassion, but to haggle over the price just like I would with an able person. It is still part of their culture to haggle over the price. The smiles I got from these people after I followed James's recommendations was great. So it's nice, isn't it? You hear this all the time, you know, when guys visit very poor regions in Cambodia or other countries, it's generally the people who are the worst off, the poverty stricken, you know, the farmers and people who haven't got enough money to live on that are the kindest, the most generous, you know, and they're willing to share whatever they've got with you. And I do get his point about they don't want charity, they want to be working and they want you to barter with them because you know, they don't want the sympathy, as it were. But that's a real nice story, something different there. I'm actually planning to go to Siem Reap sometime in the future because I have been to Cambodia, but it was many years ago and I went to the capital. I've never been to Siem Reap. I've heard good things about it. People tell me it's like Thailand 20 years ago, so that would make me very happy. So let's hope I can do that sooner than later. Okay, let's get into my the third story for today. I have followed your channel for some years now and really enjoy the stories you read out. I also enjoy your videos on Mali. As you recently requested more stories, I decided to send in mine. First, some background on me. I'm a 71-year-old retiree and first started going to Thailand in 1999. That was the year I divorced and I have never remarried. I've had many wonderful and exciting trips to Thailand over the years. In fact, I used to submit stories to another site about my adventures before they went belly up. Anyway, from 1999 until 2020, I used to visit the kingdom twice a year. Unfortunately, I had medical issues and in 2021 and 2022 was unable to travel. Luckily, in 2022, I recovered from my ailments and began travelling again. Afraid of the 18 or 19-hour trips from the States to Bangkok, I decided to make Mexico my travel destination. For almost 2 years now, Mexico had been my go-to vacation destination. I haven't thought much about Thailand as I wasn't healthy enough to go there these last 2 years. Then last Sunday on August the 27th, 2023, you read out a story of a guy from Sweden who talked about his Thai woman he met on a dating app and that the woman has lived in Sweden for 6 or 7 years. As I read the story of the man from Sweden, I realised it was my story over the past 2 years, only my story occurred in Mexico, not Sweden. To refresh your readers' memories, I'll summarise what he said, and I'm using his words as much as possible and editing some parts out. He said, she had a short body, a cute face. At first she would show me a lot of affection and attention, but it all changed and she started always thinking about money and what she needed and what I had to do to help her. She hardly showed me any love, never hugged or kissed me, and did I mention she had a couple of kids as well? If you change the name of the people involved and the location, that is my story, exactly. The truth is, in 1999 I went to Thailand and I fell in love with a bar girl. 6 months later I returned looking for her, but she had met a guy and moved to France with him. Lesson learned. I never made that mistake again. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. However, I happily had 3 successful relationships in Thailand these past 23 years. Each of these relationships lasted for years and of course never at the same time. All 3 of my Thai friends were professional bar girls and I was the 2-week millionaire when I was with them. We had wonderful times together and a lot of fun. Although not exclusively committed to each other, those 3 women and I were close and are close friends to this day. In fact, we still communicate every 2 to 3 months. Now here's the point I want to get to. While in Thailand over the years, I've always spent my time and money with these 3 ladies. However, once I returned home, not one of the 3 girls ever asked me for money, although towards the end of COVID, I did send each money as I knew they were having a very hard time of it. I recently asked my 3 friends why they never asked me for money, and all 3 said, because we are friends. I'll repeat this for your readers who will think I'm making this up. They did not ask me for money while I was away from Thailand. Now back to my Mexico experience. Although not professionally a bar girl, my Mexican companion was the biggest gold digger I've ever met. Or to put it another way, my 3 Thai professional girlfriends were not half the gold diggers she was. So I guess I'm trying to make 3 points. 1. That while most Thai bar girls are gold diggers, and I've certainly spent time with the gold digging type, there are some bar girls who were there to make money without resorting to digging tactics. 2. That you don't have to be a bar girl to be a gold digger. Gold diggers are found in every profession. In the bar business there are many gold diggers, but some of the women are fair in their profession and are honest with their transactions. 3. That you don't have to be in Thailand to find a gold digger. As I said, above the greatest gold digger I've ever met was from Mexico, meaning every country has their own gold diggers. I'm not sure how you or your readers will react to my take on things, because in a way I'm defending some Thai bar girls. In closing, I'd like to say that life is to be experienced individually and not stereotyping any person or profession is not good. My advice to anyone is to be open to life, keep your wits about you, and hopefully you'll be able to enjoy life well into your 70s. Thanks for reading my story. P.S. I am praying I'll be healthy enough to make it to Thailand next year. I would like to buy you lunch if possible. I promise I'll pay more than 100 baht for your lunch, haha. Okay, he's referring to the guy who invited me out to lunch in Pattaya. He kept asking me and asking me and asking. And when I finally went for lunch, instead of him paying the bill, he gave me 100 baht and said, that's towards your lunch. So that's what he's referring to. Yeah, I mean, he's getting on in life, isn't he? And he's still travelling. That's great. But he's right. You know, I mean, this channel is about Thailand. We talk about all things Thailand, and there's a lot of stories from Thailand. But the same thing happens all over the world, even in the West. You know, I mean, how much do you end up paying for a date in the UK or America, wherever? So yeah, nice story. Right, that's it for me once again for the stories. There'll be more stories next Saturday, hopefully. You guys will keep sending them in. Until then, have a great week, and I'll catch up with you real soon.